Hi, in this segment we're going to talk about marketing the business, and this really is about finding buyers and qualifying and dealing with buyers. So you as a seller need to work with your investment banker or broker to determine who the likely buyers are and create that list. So, I mean, if you have a big business, there's probably only a couple different buyers who have the capital to go ahead and buy it. So those are pretty well known. But the moment that you start, if you have a business that's generally under the $250 million range and going all the way down to the $50,000 range, the list of potential buyers grows exponentially. And you really need to have a process because there's no way that your broker or banker knows all the buyers, or that you, even though you think you know all the potential buyers, there's a lot more buyers that are out there. You really need to have a process to go ahead and reach out to them. And now brokers and bankers generally have databases that they can market to, but it's important for you to just have the discussion and sit down and outline, well, here's the type of buyers that we're looking at. Here's the type of high net worth individuals that are in the network. If you're working with a business broker and they're part of a large firm, then they might have a connection to a lot of different high net worth individuals and buyers because they work with many other brokers, and they can market that business to many brokers who can bring more buyers, and that's in your interest. But if you're working with potentially selling the business to a private equity group or strategic, then it's important for your broker or an investment banker to go through and figure out which of the likely private equity groups and then put that list together. And then create the process for reaching out to them, whether that's putting ads out in different websites that a business is for sale, or putting out there, or sending letters out, or making calls. But it's really a hunting process for some brokers, and it's a hunting and gathering process. But it's also important to have had the conversation about confidentiality, and I can't emphasize this enough, because you and your investment banker or broker need to see eye to eye very clearly as to what information is confidential and what is not at what stage. Because buyers need to know information at certain stages, but they don't need to know everything up front. And so no banker or broker worth their salt is ever going to push for that, or is really going to go out there and market your business with your name on it. But you really have to have a good sense of what information gets released to whom and to when and how. Now, that's reaching out to buyers. So you need to have a good process for that in place, and we'll be covering some of that in some of our other classes for how to do that and to generate buyers, to get multiple buyers to the table. But the next part is really qualifying buyers. So this is where I would say one of the key areas where a business broker and an investment banker really earn their money and their salt. Because you as a seller don't have the time to waste with buyers who are not real buyers. And investment bankers and brokers, what they need to be doing is out there is flushing out these buyers to find out if they actually have the money and the resources and the capacity to do this. And there's a variety of different questions that you can ask to a buyer, but one of the key ones is, do you have the money? And if a buyer doesn't have the money or can't demonstrate that they have access to the money, then that investment banker must go ahead and tell that buyer that they're not qualified to move forward in the process, and then excuse them from the process. Because the last thing that investment banker broker should be doing is bringing an unqualified buyer to a seller of a business and having the seller spend even a minute with that buyer and potentially disclosing confidential information to an unqualified buyer. It makes absolute no sense, but it does happen out there. So it's critical for you, the seller, to have a good conversation with your banker or broker about what are the type of questions that you're going to ask of buyers, what are the expectations of buyers, what are good qualified buyers. And your banker or broker should be rather fearless in pushing buyers to find out whether they have the capital or not. Now, this is really an issue where you're talking to it's less of an issue if you're talking to a strategic buyer that's well known and you can see their balance sheet, their publicly held balance sheet. But even then, you still need to push for things. Or a private equity group that's well established and you have a good sense of what their capital, what type of capital they have and how much capital they have, what we would call dry powder, how much money they have to invest. But it becomes a very big issue when you're dealing with unknown buyers who it's unclear where they get their capital and whether or not they have it. And in that case, the broker needs to really push to find out, do you have the money? Where do you have the money? In what form is that money? Who can I call? What third-party person can I call to verify that that money is actually, available? What other references can you provide to me to give me comfort as an investment banker or broker that you actually have the financial resources? Have you done transactions like this before? Do you have portfolio companies? Let me talk to one of the CEOs of your portfolio companies. Let me talk to one of the former sellers. There's a variety of questions that an investment banker can really push on a buyer to make sure they have the capital. And I say push, and they can do it in a very professional